The year is 2024, and once again, our great country is faced with an impossible choice.
Voting is great, but if I have to choose between a douche and a turd, I just don't see the point.
You don't see the point. Oh, you young people just make me sick.
Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are, in my opinion, both terrible candidates in their own way. And once again, the American people will inevitably have one of them shoved down our throats on Inauguration Day in 2025. If you've come to the conclusion that you would rather stare directly into the sun than to cast your vote for either of them, you're in good company. But here's a thought. That also doesn't mean you should sit this election out either. Now, pardon me while I get a little preachy here for a second. Voting isn't just a civic duty. It's your way of saying, hey, I exist, I have opinions, and on top of that, I was motivated enough to actually vote in this election. So even if you can't in good conscience cast a vote for either of the main candidates, there are still reasons to engage with the process. You see, behind the scenes, political campaigns are run by some pretty smart people whose goal is to win elections. And they collect information from as many sources as possible to inform the messaging, platform, policies, and ultimately what their candidate is going to focus on in order to get the most votes. In general, though, the vote you cast in this election is a direct message to the campaign experts of tomorrow. Keep in mind that if you feel a certain way, you're probably not alone. Who you vote for will send a signal that, no matter how small, data analysts in future elections could pick up on and hopefully have some amount of impact. Even if the candidate you vote for loses, even if you write in a candidate with no chance of winning, and even if you're in a red or a blue state that always votes one way, your vote will still show up as a data point in the overall analysis. So while your specific voice may not be heard, at least you're making your presence known. This is why third-party candidate RFK Jr. has chosen to remain on the ballot in the non-battleground states this election, despite dropping out of the race and endorsing Trump.
My name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me. Not only did we do the impossible by collecting 1 million signatures, we changed the national political conversation forever.
One of the most common arguments I hear for not voting, other than voting is cringe, is that I'm going to sit this election out in protest of how bad the candidates are. I totally sympathize with that reasoning, by the way, but if you think about it, are you really sending a clear message of protest by staying home? If you're registered to vote and don't cast a vote at all in the election, sure, that is also a data point, but how are political analysts going to interpret an uncast ballot? How will they know you're actively choosing not to vote, and not that it's just you're no longer politically engaged or that you had other plans? They can't assume that you thought about it and then chose not to vote. Your protest suddenly becomes part of a nebulous number of people who didn't vote in the last election, and the most likely assumption they'll make is that you're just uninterested in voting. There's no further signal to them of how they can get you to vote for their party, so less focus will be spent on changing the platform to win over voters like you. If you're okay with that, there's nothing wrong with not voting. But I'm just letting you know what message I think you're actually sending. So what should you do then? Well, here are my suggestions. If there's a third-party candidate on the ballot in your state that aligns more closely with your political beliefs, your vote could really help give a spotlight to their party's platform. Jill Stein's Green Party tends to align with some of the further left-wing ideals that aren't popular in the Democrat Party, and the Libertarian Party platform, with Chase Oliver on its ticket, tends to take a principled stance against government intervention if that's more your speed. Or, of course, there's RFK Jr., for anyone who tends to be more of a populist but wants to signal that Trump doesn't deserve their vote. Specific candidates aside, another big reason to vote for one of these third parties is to help them retain enough legitimacy to be on the ballot again in 4 years without extra hoops to jump through. My understanding is that third parties generally want to get at least 5% of the vote in order to retain ballot access, though actual ballot access requirements do vary state to state. If these third-party presidential candidates aren't convincing you to vote for them either, you can still go and vote and make a bigger difference in the more local elections on your ballot. When it comes to issues that will affect your day-to-day life, local representatives can be far more impactful. On top of that, your vote has way more value in local elections due to obviously a much smaller voting pool participating in that election. Honestly, if you want to signal a protest to the presidential election, I might even argue that leaving the presidential spot only blank on your ballot sends a stronger signal that you're purposeful in objecting to that particular political race. Or better yet, you can write in your favorite cartoon character or celebrity in the presidential spot. You know, it's funny, every presidential election in my memory has these fun articles that come out afterwards with a list of what some people put as write-in candidates. This report from the 2020 election shows that in Florida, some of the write-in candidates were anybody else, Baby Yoda, Batman, The Rock, Kanye West, and even Jesus Christ. Look, I'm not making the argument that everyone needs to vote if they don't want to. I'm just saying that if you want to increase the impact you might have on our political system, even if it only moves the needle by 1/1,000,000th of a percentage point, at least that's something, right? One of the most annoying things I hear every election is the argument that if you didn't vote, you don't have a right to complain about the results. Well, we live in the United States of America. We have a right to complain about anything and everything we want. It's enshrined in our founding document, regardless of whether or not we cast a vote. But if you want to have an impact, no matter how small it is, and I do grant you it is small, I encourage you to go cast a vote this November. But hey, that's just my opinion. What do I really know? Is this a decent argument for why you should still vote, or do you think I'm an idiot who doesn't know what I'm talking about? I welcome your thoughts in the comments either way. If you like this kind of content, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to my channel. That's all I've got for now. Till next time, see ya.
Okay, I'll vote.